Two Ryans, One Planet. I'm Ryan Parker, and this is Mr. Ryan. Please say hello.
Hello, you all right?
And below us, we also got Samuel as our special guest today, all the way in Nairobi, Kenya. Samuel, please tell us about yourself and what you do in conservation. We're really excited to have you.
Thank you, and happy to meet you, Ryan. And we are connecting both the global north and the global south. So I'm right in Nairobi, Kenya, and my name is Samuel Njoroge. I am a conservationist, a self-taught conservationist. Out of passion, I just love to do the conservation work, protecting our habitats, our wildlife, and bird life. Because without that, then I am not in business, because I do tours and travel, which is my livelihood. So we will know each other more into this podcast, and I am willing to share my experience and my knowledge by conserving by doing the work of conservation that we are doing right here where I am in Nairobi, Kenya, an organization known as Friends of Ondiri, where we are conserving the habitat as well as the grey-crested cranes.
Excellent. Tell us about the habitat, the wetlands, the Ondiri habitat, because it's a very, very small area, but very important to bird life.
Yes. Actually, I think I would start by highlighting that the wetland is known as Ondiri, Ondiri, which is a corrupt name of the old lake, because remember, Kenya, we were colonized by the British, and in the late 1800s, when the colonialists came to introduce the Scottish missionaries who came to bring the gospel of Christ, then they settled in the central highlands of Kenya, because it was much more conducive for them to live there. It was more like being in London. And so they came to my home area and my home country. And so when they came, they saw a very beautiful place that had a big, beautiful, shining lake, because the water was very crispy, clean. And so they would say, oh, that's an old lake. And out of that, our community could not pronounce old lake, the Western kind of pronunciation was quite difficult for them. So they corrupted it to Ondiri. So Ondiri is now a biggest peatland highland bog that we have in Kenya. It is based 17 kilometers from Nairobi capital center towards the south, the northeast, the northwest of Nairobi. And here is, we are in a county known as Kiambu County. And the location is called Kikuyu, in Kikuyu Ward, Kikuyu Sub-County. And that is where we are doing this beautiful work of conserving the wetland, because it's also a source of livelihoods for over 3,000 community members around. And more to that is also, it has a socio-economic benefits for the farmers around who are doing organic farming. We also have people who come there for leisure, for picnics. Other people come just to enjoy nature. And so it's a beautiful place. And the reason why I'm here to speak about it, and so that we can, let people, the whole world, know that there's this beautiful and great place that is known as Ondiri in Kikuyu, Kenya.
Amazing. So if you could tell us a little bit more about how you got into conservation itself, because I'm sure a lot of our viewers would love to know exactly how you started with it.
So I would say my conservation work started in the early days of high school, because I was in an environmental club. And so we would, in Kenya, we used to have something we call the 4K clubs. 4K meant that kufanya kulima, KKK. It was, that's a Swahili word. Kufanya kulima, it's to do and to till the land. So it was a motto that was introduced by our first president of Kenya, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. And so people in Kenya used to do farming. And so it was also introduced into the curriculum. And so when we were learning that, I had a lot of interest, about animals, about, the environment. And so out of that, I developed an interest. Even when I went to high school, I joined the environmental club where we were just doing like general cleanups within our school compound or within our community. And out of that, it created a passion in me. So when I cleared high school, I joined university and did community development, projects planning and management. And that was, to do with a lot of community work. And out of that, because that was a career, I was able to bring my personal interest and now the career, the professional background into the work that I was doing. And it is out of that in 2016, we started an organization known as the Friends of Ondiri, which basically I am a founder. And out of that, now we have been doing it at a bigger level, at a scale up, other than just as an individual. And so that is how we started. That is also how I started. And so today, what I am an advocate of is mostly sustainable tourism, because when we talk of sustainable tourism, we are talking of, protecting and restoring habitats, because with these habitats, they create business for us in the tourism spheres. And therefore, I would say I have deep background in terms of community mobilization and in terms of also understanding some spheres of environmental science, which I would say this is not a degree that I have pursued, but this is what we call indigenous knowledge. So that is what I am bringing on board, and I am helping shape the work that we are doing as a community so that we can protect and restore the habitat for a better and a future generation.
Fantastic. Amazing.
Yeah.
That's really great. You said also about tourism, how restoring habitats benefits, the local people. So just how important is conservation and tourism together? Because a lot of people, when they think about it, they don't actually think about the infrastructure, what's brought in by tourism for people coming to see animals, how it gives so many different jobs, not just for tour guides, but chefs and baggage handlers and hotel people and pharmacists.
Yeah, I think I would approach it in this perspective that one, we must appreciate that without a good environment, then not just for me as a tour guide or for people in the tourism or hospitality would be affected, but it's generally the whole community. Because remember, tourism destinations exist because there is a human, there is wildlife, and there is nature that is a habitat for everyone. And so what I would say is that we ought to protect this environments and habitats, because there is none that can live without the other. That's why it's an ecosystem, because the human depend on wildlife, the wildlife also depend on the human that are there to protect it, and also the habitat also belongs to the community. Because for example, in Kenya, when we talk of Masai Mara, which is a world famous destination, popularly known all over. We have the Maasai people, which is the local community. And this is one of the indigenous communities we have globally that has really maintained its status. And therefore, you realize that for the Maasais, from the beginning, they have been conserving the environment, because wildlife and them is the one thing, because it's a nomadic community. And therefore, I would not specifically jump into something and say that, people need to live with animals or animals need to live with people, because we have great examples where people, wildlife, and the habitats for those wildlife and bird life, they coexist very peacefully. And an example is Masai Mara in Kenya. Yep.
Amazing. So when in terms of you sort of touch on it there, sort of like animal, wildlife, and human conflicts. What sort of other issues are there where you're based that are sort of not necessarily preventing you from, doing your conservation, but are making things a lot harder? Is it more to do with the human side, or is it more to do with the environment, or both?
I would think and say that human, or rather the people, are the problem
Mm-hmm.
to what we have as a crisis right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put it this way. If we look at a good case of what I've given about Masai Mara, from the word go, the Maasai people used to live very well with the lions, with the cheetahs, with the snakes, without any conflict. But because of the scramble for land for other economic purposes and infrastructural development, so you realize that the habitats that are very good for wildlife, then people intrude into those systems with doing different activities, both for socioeconomic or even political gains. And out of that, now we start to realize a big conflict because, for example, if you rattle on a snake, definitely it will bite you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you would be keen to understand about the animal behavior and you don't disturb it in its natural habitation, then there will be no conflict. Look at an example of the elephants that are going into people's land. Why they are doing that is because we have already polluted the parks, or the gazetted areas or designated areas for these animals. So what will happen is, of course, with the climate change, which is also a bigger debate, which we could ask ourselves whether it's the human or it's the climate change. For me, I think it's the human who have brought all these crises, and so therefore I believe that of course we need to do demarcations where we can protect this wildlife, and with that it also protects the human being, because these things cannot be disaggregated. They must work and they must correlate.
And just for the viewers, because when you say about climate crisis, a lot of people here in the UK and I think in the United States, they like to question it. It's not real, because we don't have such devastating effects here. But from talking to you over the last year and everyone else I know from East Africa and Tanzania and Kenya, I'm aware of the devastation. But I wonder if you could just tell us how bad it really is with droughts and flooding. Like, if you can tell us how it affects your livelihood and the local people as well.
It is quite devastating because, for example, as we speak right now, where I am, it's raining heavily. Actually, for me to join this
Oh, I think he was just about to talk about joining this podcast, and he's just got
Hey, please give him a little message.
Yeah,
how he's doing.
I think he was just about to tell us
I
about
think
the
he's
connection.
he's made a really good solid point.
That's funny.
Let me see how he is.
Okay.
That's the climate crisis there happening. It's the best. You're back.
Oh, you're back. There we go.
Sorry.
I think you was just about to tell us about your connection, and then you cut out.
Yes, now those are some of the crises that we are getting into. I had the internet go off briefly, but it's okay. because when we have so long lanes, then it interferes with our internet and telephone connectivity. And so back to what we were discussing about how devastating is the climate effect on us. It is quite difficult for us, because I would say from 2021, just after COVID, our country and basically East Africa went into a prolonged drought period. That is for about now 4 years. And out of that, a lot of wildlife died. Like, you can read so much about Savo East, where we were having a lot of loss of elephants. Also in Serengeti, in Masai Mara, we were losing a lot of wild animals, and a big conflict with both the human and the wildlife. And so one of the things we are seeing is that because of the climate change, or rather the weather patterns change, then we are seeing prolonged, sunny times or very dry seasons, which of course end up to being drought seasons. So there is no pasture for wildlife, for even the domestic animals, and also it imposes a risk also on food security for the human. And so just previously, we had so much rains. That was in the month of April and May. And in Masai Mara, parts of Serengeti, it was very chaotic, because even the tented camps that were along the river, like Mara River, they were swept away. A lot of people died. Others were left homeless. And so all this is the crisis that we are talking about. And so I want us to think that we are very quick to blame the climate change, which for sure I want to believe human or the people are the biggest challenge, because we are the ones who are doing pollution. If we look at, for example, the fossil fuels, or even dumping, a simple action like, you just take your sweet or a biscuit and you just throw away that litter without caring much, then I think that is the most devastating thing, where humans are inflicting into the environment. And out of that, we see like those who are living down the stream of the rivers and the oceans, there's a lot of pollution. And with that, now it causes a bigger crisis, because even in terms of health, it also gets affected, where you find a lot of chemicals going into our water, going into our food, right from the production. So I think we are in a total mess. And so what I would urge all of us who are concerned about, conservation work, I think it's a high time that we come together, we discuss what we call the baseline or the root cause of the problems that we have. Because we may not just be blaming each other, saying, oh, the Western world is not giving money to do the cleanups, or we cannot do this as people from the global south, because we don't have A, B, C, and D. I think the smallest action that one can take is just be responsible. And if all of us are responsible, then we have a better world where everyone will live peacefully and we will coexist even with nature very well.
Mhm. I think you've made a good point there. I think in a lot of conservation, we always look to, the environmental factors or wildlife factors or anything like that. But I think sometimes you do have to physically look at the human population in general, in terms of the way we live our lives, in terms of the way we consume different things. And I think sometimes conservation starts literally at home with the individual who is doing those things. I think that's a very key point that you've made there, and especially now that we always see around the globe. There's so many different things, especially like at COP. Recently, we know that all these world leaders are always trying to push these legislations to make a difference, but they just never really fully get to the point of making that change. as you touched on then, you know, all the different countries, these bigger countries, they're always waiting for something else, but they never state what it is, do they?
Yeah, I agree with you with what you both said there. But I think it's like you said, it's the small things that what we do at home. And you know, when I came to Kenya, my first time, they had a rule that you can't bring any plastic bags into the country. If you do, you get a £10,000 fine. There's small things like that. You know, you run roads tours, which is responsible travel, and being a guide. Do you see people from the Western world where they have like a chocolate bar or water, and you're out on safari and they want to throw out the window or something like that? I think small little things stopping people from doing that and appreciating nature in such a beautiful way, that has the rippling effect rather than just governments telling us things. We can make these differences on our own.
Yeah, I think I would say out of my experience, what I have seen, most of the polluters actually are not even non-residents or foreigners who are coming on tourism purposes or visiting, because I think this is also about cultures. I think here in Africa, sorry to say this, we have a culture that we think that somebody else is responsible, not us. And I think that is the worst crisis. I would say it's like a tragedy of the commons, because this is what people tend to think, that unless we get foreign aid to come and develop our systems to work, then we won't make it. Because when I say we have a bad culture, and I'm not saying that this is for everyone, but just a few people, then when we look at the ripple effect of those bad few people, then it becomes a big menace, because out of small habits, then it becomes a culture, and that culture then affects everything. So I want to say that us as a tour company, road tours, and when we are guiding our tourists, one of the things we talk about is the sustainability. For example, during our safaris, we highly recommend that you don't bring plastic bottles within our safari. You can come with your recycled bottle all the way from the US or from the UK or from wherever you are traveling from. And out of that, it's a very small thing you have done, because just carrying your bottle will not cost you much. Neither will it cost us anything. And out of that, that's why we are saying small things matters, because if we are able to do that, it means we will not throw away the plastic in a very bad way. Because another thing is, you find even when we do safaris with the plastic bottles, the waste disposal is also a big challenge, because sometimes we don't have the dustbins in our parks. Maybe within the park, you can only find a dustbin just at the main entrance. And so, especially when you have children, it's a big problem, because the children, because they have also seen their parents throw away the trash in a very responsible manner, then they will just continue the same trend. And therefore, as a company, we take that as our own responsibility. One, to sensitize our client, and also to sensitize the general population that we need to be responsible. And out of that, we have seen a decrease on the plastics in the parks. And we have also seen more people take responsibility, like, just a small thing of growing a tree, where somebody, even during safari, will just donate a tree, then we plant together, and one of us will be looking after it so that it doesn't die off. And out of that, we reduce the carbon emission in the air and other pollution, because we are not just talking about the carbon going into the air. There is also general cleanliness. If you litter by use of plastics. Of course, we have a ban. The government of Kenya and most of the East African states right now, we have a policy that we don't allow plastic bags coming into us, neither are we using them. But once in a while, you still find some polythene papers around everywhere and anywhere. So, but we are very opportunistic that we know there's a time that will come and everybody will be in a position to do what they ought to do in a better way.
So you would say education is the key to conservation in this way?
Definitely. If we are able to create awareness, more people become much aware, then we will be surprised how much power and how much change that can come along with that education. Because, for example, why am I able to speak, candidly about our small actions that we can do? Is because I've gone to school, I've interacted with professionals. I may not have a doctorate to to just tell somebody that scientifically, if I throw litter, it will cause pollution. But even in our traditional systems, cleanliness always meant that it can start from the small thing of just using a broom to clean a place where you're living so that you can have a better life. And so it's an opportunity for everyone to just take small responsibility.
And would you say there needs to be more education within the local system? Like you said, with local people, one thing I noticed was when I first came to Kenya, I was in Nairobi National Park, and there was a group of people who live quite locally, and I spotted a leopard on my binoculars, and they'd never seen a leopard before, and they never seen a rhino, and they'd never seen a giraffe, even though they live in Nairobi. And I felt so strange that me and other people have flown thousands of miles to come and see the animals in the natural habitat, and the people who's next to me lived there. I've never seen these animals. Do you think if there's some way conservation organizations can arrange for local communities to go into Masai Mara, Lake Nakuru, and go and see the animals in natural habitat, they might be like, wow, I'm so proud to have this on my doorstep. I want to save it, so I'm not going to throw plastic out. I'm going to make the effort and be like you.
Definitely. And on this, I would say a big thanks to, conservation organizations, including our government of Kenya, because they have given the Kenyans and East African citizens the opportunity to go to the park. Actually, sometimes every year, there is a freebie, there is a free day for Kenyans to enter the national park. And I remember just the other day, October 20th, which is called it a Heroes Day. It used to be a day we would commemorate our founding father of the nation. But currently, the government, through the Kenya Wildlife Service, they are waiving, the fee to enter the parks for all the Kenyans once in a while. And that is to also encourage local tourism, because initially people used to think that, walking to a national park or to a place where we are conserving the wildlife is too expensive, because the thinking was that these are meant for foreigners. But today there is a lot of campaigns, promoting local tourism, even in small destinations. I am involved in an organization that actually yesterday we were meeting as locals. And one of the things that for me and our company Roads Tours we are doing, thanks to partnership also with other conservationists like Save the Animals, Save the World, we are able to allow people to come and engage and also go and see areas that do not necessarily seem to be major destinations. For example, Ondire wetland, we are pushing it to be a Ramsar site, to be recognized as an important birding area globally. Because if that happens, then more locals will get value because they will become tour guides, they will benefit even financially, and out of that, they will also be in a position to visit even other destinations, one for benchmarking and also for leisure. And so I thank everyone, even the people who have organized this, both Ryan Parker and Ryan Edos, because this podcast, I believe, it is not just for me, the three of us. It's going out to reach millions because there's power in social media, and that is why I say to people, let us push the agenda of local tourism. Let us push sustainable tourism so that even the locals can also enjoy what a foreigner will come and enjoy. Of course, we know the foreigners, we charge you so much to come and see our wildlife. And so when we do this, I would want to guarantee you that your money is going to the right direction and to do something that is responsible. So we welcome everybody to come and visit us. We tour and we visit and see great features and great animals while we are doing that responsibly.
I think that's such an amazing initiative to be able to allow locals to go and visit the national parks, because that doing that not only helps the younger and the older generation to sort of remember where they are in the world and to know what wildlife are on their doorstep, but it also encourages them then to spread that awareness, that education, that understanding. It even encourages more people to become more people like us, like conservationists. I think that's such an amazing initiative. Fantastic, that is.
Yeah, true. Another thing you realize is that right now, for example, right now the COP29 is happening, right, at Baku.
Yes.
Lots of organizations, lots of people discussing the climate change.
Mm-hmm.
We want to believe that with more awareness, with more people being empowered to take actions for that can mitigate the climate effects, then we are going to have a better world. I still believe there is hope in everything. That's why we must be encouraged every day to do what we are doing, even if it doesn't seem like it's working. What I know is working. I can give you a testimony of when we started working at the wetland Ondiri. It used to be like a dam site where everybody would just come in, bring their cattle to graze. People walking around the wetland, cutting down the reeds and the grass that grows on the peatland above for their domestic animals, which was good. But they did not understand that if we interfere with this wetland, we are interfering with our air. We are interact. We are making it not work even for the river to flow, and thereafter the effects come. And now, when these effects come, we start to realize that those who are harvesting fodder, even they don't have water to feed their cows. Why? Because the wetland has gone down. The water abstraction is too much. And when all that happens, then you find that we create a bigger problem than we could solve. But when we started the efforts of sensitizing the community, telling them we don't have to cut the fodder for the cows from here, we can look for alternative means. We can look for alternative ways of making cheaper animal feeds. Then, with that, we can see our wetland being restored. The river that was not flowing about 3 years ago, now it's flowing as we speak. I just witnessed that yesterday because I had some clients who had come from Netherlands and I took them there. And I was telling them, if you came here in 2022, this place would be very, very dry. You couldn't believe that there is a wetland. But today, even with those small efforts of reclaiming the land, reclaiming the habitat, that's Ondire, then we can see better future for even our generations.
Fantastic.
And have you seen the wetlands since it's been returning, the wildlife coming back as well?
Yes. Actually, significantly, when there was no river flowing, that was in 2021, 2022, 2023, then you could just walk across the wetland, even barefoot, and there's no water. But now, as we speak, I can tell you it's even becoming difficult now to cross the wetland. Not that it has overflooded, because remember, a wetland is like a kidney. It purifies the water, it sieves, the bad things, and then the water flows down to the aquifers. And out of that, it forms now the rivers that serves the communities beyond where this wetland is. And out of that, it means that right now we have seen it restored and being better. And how can we prove that it's being restored? One, we can see with our eyes the water flowing. Two, we can see a lot of birds that had moved to other locations come back. We can witness migratory birds that have passed through there, and we can account that in 2021 we were having 60 different species, and now we have about 210 different species, both endemic and migratory. That is something that you don't have to bring a scientist to come and interpret that. We can see with our eyes. So I believe even now there's still power in doing what we are doing.
Fantastic. And then obviously throughout your career, I must ask, have you had any very close encounters with any animals that you remember straight off the bat?
Oh, yes, definitely. I would say I'll start with a little background. When we were growing up at the wetland, we used to have a special animal known as the Sitatunga antelope. That one, you only find it in wetlands. It's just like a waterbuck. And so out of the infrastructural development and poaching, because our community would poach the Sitatungas for meat, wild meat. Then we didn't have stringent laws on conservation, and so some of these animals got to extinction. So today, if you come to the wetland, we don't have Sitatungas anymore. But in Kenya, we have Sitatungas in Saiwa swamp, which is to the north of Kenya. And what we are doing, we want to make the habitat good enough that we can work with the Kenya Wildlife Service and other organizations so that we can borrow some from Saiwa, then they can come to this place as a sanctuary. And with that, we will be able to take care of them, as we also give the younger generations and those who have never seen a Sitatunga an opportunity. In terms of like the birds, we are specifically conserving the cranes. I remember just this year we were doing an East African gray-crested cranes, gray-crowned cranes. What do you call it? Where you count? It's a count basically. Where we were, yeah, it's a census. Yeah, we were doing a census for the gray cranes, and out of that, we saw a very big reduction. Why? Because we are using a lot of chemicals in our farmlands. And when I mean we are using, I am not a farmer, but I'm speaking on behalf of our community that there's a lot of chemical pollution that goes into the wetlands, to the rivers. And out of that, remember that the cranes, they actually live in wetlands that are not polluted. So whenever you drain, the chemicals into their habitat, what will happen is they'll die, There are some people who have used them as ornamental birds, so they poach them to keep them in their homes. And so what we are trying to do is to tell people that let us, take care of these birds, because beyond you, one person holding this bird in their home as a pet, then it's a natural resource that can be taken. And I remember, like, in the month of April, one lady called us and said, there's this bird that came to my place and I've been feeding it, but now I just learned about what you people are doing. Can you come and pick it and take it back to its natural habitat? That is a rescue mission accomplished because we were able to do that. And so, in as much as we have a decline with these animals, because of different factors, then if we have the opportunity to rescue, if we have the opportunity to protect them, better for all of us.
Wow, that's
Fantastic.
really incredible. And seeing these cranes in the wild, it is really nice to see them. I saw them in Lake Nakuru, and you see them roaming. When you said the numbers have dropped, are there lots of
Yes.
other cities as well in Kenya where numbers are dropping due to farming and climate change? Is there a big notice of that now?
Yes, there is a big notice. Actually, from the census, we were accounting for about 8,000, birds that we were able to, count within the borders of Kenya. And that is a decline of actually about 30 to 40%, because the previous census that was held 4 years ago was accounting for more than 15,000. So the question we had was, where did those other cranes go to? And one of the things that the data we were collecting was establishing why a decline in some specific areas, really. And we realized that there was a lot of chemical into the air and chemical into the farmlands, because that was on the western part of Kenya, where those cranes used to live in what we call the grasslands, and the farmlands, where people are using a lot of chemicals. Then there's a big decrease in terms of numbers. So, that's a very big population to lose. But then there are organizations, including ourselves, that are trying to take care of that, so that we can see that they are able to regenerate again, because we got that opportunity to regenerate them.
And do you get to work with other organizations in other parts of East Africa, like Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania? Because the species, these animals, they don't see, borders like us. They just hop over. So with different countries having different laws, do you notice there's a difference, or can you just easily work together?
Yeah, it's very possible, and we are already in talks with such organizations because they exist. For example, we have the Cranes International is working in Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda, and there are smaller groups that are working in the smaller at the local levels all over. So there's a network that we have also joined that takes care of that. Some universities, like the University of Eldoret, they are very much involved in the conservation, and other universities are also concerned. The University of Nairobi is doing a lot of work on that, Moi University, and so many other institutions are working on that, to see that these birds are protected, and even policies revolving their habitats are also taken care of. So we are seeing that, but we need more help, because when we forge bigger partnerships, for example, I want to believe maybe there are people out there in the Western world who can help local organizations, like in remote sensing, or maybe like tagging those birds, so that we are able to account for them on a daily basis. And at the end of the day, we can say, if we have 30 of them in this wetland, then how can we record about them and showcase that within the next 1 year we are able to account for 60 because maybe they will have reproduced. So that is possible, and that is why we want to seek partnerships beyond just the local partnerships, a global partnership.
Mhm.
Yes.
So what's your sort of hope for the future, especially locally as well? What's the end goal?
I would say different categories. At the local level, mostly for me, the hope is more awareness.
Mhm.
And once we are able to do that, when more people are aware, then it means we are able to conserve and to make our work easy. At the global level is to bring together, different partners coming on board with different capacities. For example, Ryan does a great job of rescuing the animals that have been injured or those that have been kicked out of their natural habitat, even by other animals. And so when that happens, it means that we will, if we will not restore to 100%, we will have increased the chances of the survival for animals. And with the survival for animals, it means also a livelihood for the communities, because when we have an undisturbed ecosystem, then everyone benefits from the environment to the human and the wildlife.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
it is really a huge. It's just everyone doing small little things where they can, and if you can do more, is I think one thing what think really stops conservation efforts are people not wanting to work together. I think that can just cause such a divide, and the end goal should be is the wildlife and the community around it. Plus, which is nice for me, what I like doing when I work with different organizations like you is you get to meet like-minded people, and it's hard work, but you get to enjoy it together. And someone we've been speaking for 2 years now, talking on the phone, and it's just such a great partnership to have from different ends of the world and to bring that together. I think this is something we need to share more, because there can be people in Australia, South Africa, United States, all this big web of connection. That's how we can make that difference there. Because what you're doing now in Nairobi affects the rest of the world. And what we're doing here in the UK is affecting everybody else around the rest of the world. So I think it's something we really need to, dance and sing about and raise that awareness.
I think that's why we've sort of created this podcast, because you just never know who's listening, and whoever's listening to this might be able to, link you, Samuel, to multiple organisations, or even if it's just another organisation that's local to you that you're not aware of. You just never know who's listening, and I think that's the value of these sort of podcasts, and put in social media and communications and all sorts of things like that. It really empowers conservation globally and locally.
Yeah, definitely. I believe the world right now is at the palm of our hands, because with the internet robusting and being available everywhere, even in a rural village. Because like myself, I am in a rural village. If you go to the map, you don't find us in a city. You find us in a rural area, and so with this kind of technology, it means that we are able to come together very fast and very easily. So even if, for example, there was an action that is needed to be taken, we have a lot of experts that you can just get online and do a WhatsApp call, or you do a podcast like we are doing, or you do even a physical meeting, because even nowadays now you can move from one country to another much more easier than before. And so there is hope in what we are doing, and there is an opportunity for everyone to partake. And if you're out there listening to this podcast and you would want to get in touch, please do get in touch with us. Let us see how maybe your idea could be the solution to the challenges that we have. So everybody is open to bring in their contribution, either as an expert, as an academia, as a person who has different experiences, as an organization or an institution, governments. It's concerted efforts. And when we do that, then we will be good to go and we will have a better world to live in.
Mm-hmm. And if people do want to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can do email, which is very good. Do I need to mention it here, or
No,
it can?
I was going to say we'll put it in the link below so everyone can follow it to you.
Yeah, yes, or through a WhatsApp number.
Mm-hmm.
With the same contact that I had shared with you, and Ryan has it. That is a number that you can find us. But you can also follow our page, Roads Tours, because within that page, we also do a lot of sensitization, whereby in as much as we are doing tourism, we also teach. Actually, our kind of campaign that we do as a company is sometimes we will focus on an animal, and we want to teach people about that animal, not just selling a package, because we believe somebody who has an interest of something will look for a way to come and see that thing. Maybe if they are looking for elephants, if we educate you about the behaviors of an elephant and why we need to protect them, then you would resonate with that. And now with that, you can also book a tour with us, because part of the profits that we get when we charge for a tour goes back to the conservation work. So that money goes to do some kind of corporate responsibility. So I welcome everybody, and find our details below, and you reach us in an easy way and we'll be able to respond.
Amazing. So, in terms of the tours as well, because I'm sure a lot of people listening to this would be, really looking forward to doing something like that, especially if they've never done a safari tour before. What other things can they experience on this tour? Can they, what's the accommodation? What's the sort of, the logistics, the schedule of what you do? What's the whole package?
So basically, the type of tours we do is whereby we help you curate what we call an end-to-end safari, whereby we first discuss with you as a potential client, so that we can understand your needs. Because there's somebody who will be coming to Kenya specifically wanting to go to the beach. So if you want to go to the beach, we will customize your experience towards the beach, and we will still entrench the sustainability perspective or the responsibility perspective in your safari. So we will help you book flights. We will help you book accommodations. We also run our own small accommodation, which is a farm stay experience, where you can affordably come and stay with us in our guest house. And this guest house is made actually out of recycled materials, because we want to show people that the little resources we have can be turned to an opportunity, to a bigger opportunity. So we can provide accommodation, we provide transport, we provide guiding. If somebody is not interested in something specifically of that tour, then we usually ask them within the packaging, can we remove this or can we add this? If they are okay, then we go ahead. And so most of our safaris will start from Nairobi. Nairobi is a great city, so we have wildlife. And actually, Nairobi National Park is the only capital city in the whole world that has, a park. And so we welcome people to come and enjoy, visiting the only world's capital animal, park. So that is one thing. From there from Nairobi, We also now take you to places like Amboseli, Masai Mara, and it will vary with the number of people. It will vary with age. Different people have different, options or what they would like to do, and that gives them the different experiences. That's why we would say we prefer to make a personalized kind of a package so that we don't generalize everybody, because not everybody has the same interest. There are even those people who come specifically because they want to do conservation work. Let them welcome. We bring them and they see for themselves.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So you tailor it to that individual.
Yes, we tailor to the individual. Yeah.
And just to remind people that when you book through road tours, the money, part of the profit is going back into conservation. So you're helping local communities, but you're making that difference as well by visiting road tours and visiting Kenya. You are helping as well. And Samuel, I think it's fair to say you're not restricted to Kenya as well. You work in Uganda and Tanzania as well. So, Samuel can take you all over.
Yes, I think that is something I had forgotten to mention, that as a company, we are not just restricted to work in Kenya. We actually do what we call East African experience. Because, for example, if you want to see gorillas in Kenya, we don't have. So you have to go either to Rwanda or to Uganda. If you are looking for the mountains, the rooftop of Africa is Kilimanjaro, which is in Tanzania. So if your interest would be specifically to visit and see the gorillas, then we will tailor make your experience specifically to go direct into Uganda, where we will serve you diligently. And we have the systems that are working, from booking to getting the service until you go back to the country of origin. And if you wish to stay with us longer and more, we welcome you. In Kenya, you can get a visa very easily. Our government has supported that. Our president is even has even given us what we call the digital nomads visa. So you can come and even work from Nairobi as a digital nomad. Yeah, so we have a lot of opportunities within East Africa.
Amazing. Now I'm going to ask you a very, very hard question, Samuel. What's your favorite animal? What's your favorite
yes. My favorite animal is giraffe. Why a giraffe?
Yeah.
It's because it's very gentle. And remember that is the only animal that doesn't make any sound. Or do we have a sound of a giraffe from London? Maybe it would be good to know from today. So,
well,
having
I know for a fact you get on very well with my partner because she absolutely adores giraffes. So there we go.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, giraffes. Why? Because they are gentle. And two, the giraffes have a very good vision. That is one of the things that helps me compare myself even to a giraffe, because my vision is greater than where I am. And if you look at the life of a giraffe, it is very strong, it sees very far, and the same giraffe is beautiful. It attracts people. It attracts even the predators. So at the end of the day, but it's not easily preyed on, because it's also very strong. So its kicks are very brutal. So that makes it my favorite animal. In terms of the birds, my favorite is the cranes, because of the crown that they have. And that's very beautiful, very attractive. And the dancing of a crane is the most amazing thing. So I wish that you come and see them dance in Kenya and in Uganda. Actually, it's the national bird of Uganda. Yeah.
Because I do remember when I came to Africa for the first time, and obviously my favorite animal in the world is a is a rhino, and I just remember seeing it for the first time and just bursting into tears because it was just such a beautiful moment. And I'm sure you get to see a lot of that, don't you, on your tours, of people wanting to see like a giraffe or a rhino or an elephant, or even if it's just like a tortoise coming across the road. You know, all these people have wanted to see these for all their lives, and they get very emotional with you on these tours, I'm guessing.
Yes. Sorry, I have been bypassed by that. Did you have something?
No, I was just saying, like, I'm guessing you've seen a lot of people get really emotional when they see these animals in the wild.
Oh, yes. There are those who actually get very emotional. Just 2 weeks ago, I had a client from UK actually, and it was a couple. They used to live in Kenya once, and then they migrated back. And one of the thing is that when they would see the lady would see the giraffe, she was, like it's everything that she has ever wanted to see in her life. So I remember when we went to Masai Mara and we were seeing the Maasai giraffe, she was there like for almost a whole hour, just staring and watching that giraffe. So sometimes we get those experiences where somebody gets very fascinated, some become very emotional, some feel like they want to go and hug that animal. But of course, because we have rules to protect them, then we have to explain to them, you can't do that. But if you wish to do something like this, you can go to a place that allows that. For example, the giraffe center allows you to go and feed the giraffe, because that is also a habitat that it's a home, it's a sanctuary that they have created to take care of them. And so you can interact with them up close. But in the wildlife service parks or in the national reserves, then it is not allowed, because you don't need to disturb them. You need to respect their habitat. You need to respect their, their way of life. So it's usually good and also informative that we let people know.
And just about the emotion, sitting there an hour watching a giraffe. I mean, I love it as well. But I just think it's one thing we should mention for anyone else who's listening to this or watching this who works in conservation. The greatest marketing, advertising, selling point we have is that emotion. If we bring people to Africa and they sit with their eyes, they listen, because it's not just seeing, it's the heat, it's the smell, it's the interaction, it's the feeling of the ground, it's the noises, all the various animals smell. That's going to bring something in your heart, and those people are going to be more likely to, yes, this is what we need to save. And they will tell their friends and their family, and more people come to Africa or anywhere else in the world where there's wildlife. That emotion, that's the greatest selling point we have as conservationists for every other people, because it can be easy for us now to go and talk to someone else who works in conservation and they say, yes, I love animals. But somebody whose job is maybe an accountant, a lawyer, or a school teacher, anything like that, we want to sell it to them. And that's it. The emotion in the heart is how we sell conservation.
Definitely. Actually, why conservation is very emotional and very rational is because, you see, I would say, think of it like when you find, an animal hunting. Well, we know that is the natural instincts of an animal to hunt. But think of that antelope running for life, and think of a lion that is looking at this and it's saying that this is a matter of life and death, because if I don't get that impala or that gazelle, then I am going to die. So what does that bring? It brings the emotions. And that is why every tourist wants to come to see. I know many tourists will ask me, shall we see a hunt? Shall we see a kill? And I have even corrected them. Let's not call it a kill. Let's call it looking for food, because of course that's a natural way of balancing the ecosystem. but at the end of the day, it creates that emotions. And that is why when you have that emotion to care of, then you would want to see the lions live in harmony, the impalas, the giraffes, the birds, and everyone, even the people. So it's about emotions also. I agree with that.
Definitely. So what would be your sort of last message to everyone, Samuel? What is it that you want to emphasize to everyone?
My parting shot would be, let's all embrace, sustainable tourism. Let's protect our wildlife, our planet, our people, because these three components are very key to this life. So let us enjoy responsibly.
I think that's such a lovely way to end this podcast.
Yeah. I just want to say, Samuel, Asante Sana for joining us.
Asante Sana means thank you very much, and welcome is Karibu. So I say Karibu Kenya and Asante Sana. Thank you so much for listening to us and for giving us the opportunity to bring to you Kenya virtually.